1977, and this was when they ended their sessions, and remixed the entire album in a weekend without Ted or the band. And he said that he needed to do this and that he needed concentration to do it. He said that when there's a lot of input and energy around, it was hard to do, and he needed quiet. So it was her and him in the studio over the course of a weekend. He said the guys from Van Halen were very young and enthusiastic. He said they were very green. They were very happy to be in the studio. But he said it was that mix that Don Landy did that got released. And she said, technically, some of the stuff we did, no engineer could do, but we did it. She said, and we tried stuff, and if it worked, it worked. And she said it was 2 days, late in December of 77. Then the album got released in February of 78. And said at the time he was very unhappy with the mix that they had, and he really had to, crunch down and get the sound that he wanted. She said the band captured their material very easily, very quickly. She said basically it was the band, the three guys, Ed, Al, and Mike, playing off each other, and David was always separate from them. That's for sure. She said there was once a prank. I think Dweezil brought this up. He was there for this round table, that Eddie smashed a mandolin in the studio just to get a rise out of Ted. But they said they really respected Ted. Later on, things loosened up as sessions went on from one album to the next. But she said the studio is not a party place. It was a very serious place of work, and they took it seriously. So that was sort of interesting to hear about that mix, huh? That Don Landy, let me tell you something, that guy really was an angel on Van Halen's shoulder. That guy did a lot for the band. What do you think, Dave?
He did. I've only heard bits and pieces. I haven't heard her whole interview yet. But it's really very interesting to hear those kind of stories from an engineer who was there at the time. And so you really get that piece of history, that secondhand or firsthand, I should say, because she was actually there helping engineer the album. Mm-hmm. So I always find that stuff fascinating. And, some other people may find it dry and boring. I really give the people doing that podcast a lot of credit to go back there and finding the people who were there at the time.
Yeah.
Having said all that, the way the podcast was presented, at least the clip I saw, was they made them sound like Don went in, remixed the album, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you hear. But I got to tell you.
How is that possible, right?
Yeah, right. There's no way
right.
that Ted Templeman did not know what was going on. And if perchance that's exactly what happened, I can guarantee you that Don Landy would not have engineered the next album, because the second Ted put on the album, he'd be like, wait a minute, that's not what it's supposed to sound like.
Right.
That's not the mix I okay. Right. So there's no way. And him and Don were tight.
Yes.
They were really tight. They had worked together before for years.
Right.
So I think it was more Don went in, he did one last mix to really focus and get it the way he wanted. But it's not like he did it behind anyone's back.
Oh, I don't think he did. I guarantee you Ted probably knew he did it.
He had to.
Yeah.
I mean, not only was Ted a producer, he was an executive for crying out loud.
Yeah, I don't think, but I think, like you said earlier in the conversation, they were so tight that he was probably like, all right, go in and do what you got to do. He probably trusted Don completely, because those two, they didn't just work on Van Halen albums. They worked on, everything. Don Landy was like Ted's right-hand man. So if if Don's ears were Ted's ears, it's not like, Don was out of his mind and went off on a limb and went rogue. I mean, I think that if there was stuff that needed to be cleaned up and Ted had whatever executive stuff to do, because let's be honest, he did have a full-time job as an executive at Warner Brothers. He was responsible for other artists. Certainly he was producing, but at the same time, he probably delegated to Don Landy, and maybe they went over things and said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Maybe, take this down, and then Don went and did what he had to do. That's probably what happened.
Exactly.
Moving on. This is an interesting thing. So this website called Stacker, which is a world news organization, kind of focuses on a lot of data analysis, okay, came up with the most successful musical artists of all time list, okay, top 50. Okay, so Dave, where do you think Van Halen landed in the top 50 of most successful musical artists of all time.
Is this U.S. or is this worldwide?
It's U.S.
15.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting answer, Dave. And let me tell you why it's an interesting answer. It's an interesting answer because you are close, but then you are also far. And I'm going to explain this to you. This is a very strange calculation that they've done here. So what they have done is they came up with an index to rank each artist that takes into account the total number of RIAA certified units. RIAA stands for Recording Industry Association of America, okay? 70% makes that up, 20% makes up Grammy wins, and 10% makes up Grammy nominations, which I don't think record sales and Grammy nominations or wins kind of equates. I mean, record sales are record sales as far as I'm concerned. So this is where Van Halen landed. At a top 50, okay, Van Halen lands at number 42. However, if you go through this list, as I did, and added up sales, fuck Grammys, sales, just going by numbers, because I know you're a numbers guy. Van Halen, like you guessed, 15. You were close.
Wow.
You were close.
Wow.
Van Halen comes in at number 20.
Oh,
so
okay.
Van Halen
right.
came in at 20. Right. Now, who is ahead of Van Halen? I'll tell you. Elvis Presley, Garth Brooks, George Strait, AC/DC, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Whitney Houston, Aerosmith, Mariah Carey, Metallica, Madonna, Elton John, Barbra Streisand, Billy Joel, Led Zeppelin, Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen, Eagles, and the Beatles. Now, those are all legendary artists. They're in good company there. Two shockers.
Did you say George Strait?
That's what really shocked me. So now listen to
I
this.
had no idea he sold so many. Wow.
Dude, you ready for this? If I asked you how many albums George Strait sold, how many would you guess?
Obviously not enough. I don't even know now.
Well, Dave, if I told you your favorite number, 69, Dave, 69 million records. If you gave me a bet and said, do you think that George Strait sold 69 million records or less? I would be like, oh, dude, what are you kidding me? I've put all my money on less. I would be wrong. Let me just give you this real quick. Obviously, the top sales, of course, who else? The Beatles, of course. 183 million units. Right underneath them, Elvis at 146.5 million. You have someone like, let's say Van Halen level fame, like Metallica, 63 million. Aerosmith, 66.5 million. Led Zeppelin, 111.5 million. Michael Jackson, 84 million. Bruce Springsteen, 65.5 million. Eagles, 120 million. This one shocked the shit out of me. Garth Brooks, 148 million. That's more than the Eagles. How is that possible?
Actually, you know what? I was waiting for you to say his name. Dave, that guy was huge in like early 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy could do no wrong.
I know. Elton John, 78.5. Billy Joel, 84.5. I mean, these guys had some really monstrous numbers. Mariah Carey, 64 million. Whitney Houston, 58.5 million. Rolling Stones, 66.5 million. Pink Floyd, 75 million. These were really crazy numbers. Van Halen, 56.5 million. They have 14 gold albums, 13 platinum, 12 multi-platinum, 2 diamond, 1 Grammy win, and 4 Grammy nominations. So, I don't know. They had some concoction here. I guess that was their own thing that they did there, but what do you make of this?
You almost feel like, you know, they come up with these formulas because they want certain artists to be at the top.
Yeah.
So they weight them a certain way and things like that. So remind me again, what was the title of the story? What was the category they were calling this?
The most successful musical artist of all time.
Well, I guess if you rate success by Grammy wins, okay.
Well, they did say this is our formula. So they did.
No, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But I'd say there are many successful artists who have never been nominated for a Grammy.
Right.
Or never won a Grammy. So It's an interesting formula for sure, but not one I would equate with success right away.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, moving on, Dave, a huge, interesting release came out on YouTube. A Mammoth cover of War Pigs. Now, I'm not talking about Mammoth WVH. We're talking about 1972 Mammoth with Eddie and Al. Apparently made the rounds on YouTube, was pulled down, but many people are questioning its legitimacy. So there's people on VH Links, as I'm sure you well know. Everybody was put up by this guy, John Silence. He's apparently a reputable guy. He's put up a lot of cool stuff before. This is the Mammoth 3-piece with Ed on vocals and guitar, Al on drums, and of course Mark Stone on bass. And a lot of people are wondering, is this legit? Here's a clip. Now, many are saying it's too clean for a 50-year-old recording and that it sounds better than most of their early bootlegs, so it's doubtful that this is real, and then others think it's real. One even said that they think they heard at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, they hear someone saying, "Yeah, Alex." But no one really can officially tell. He said the only person who could really legitimize this is Al, because obviously Ed and Mark are gone. What did you make of this, Dave?
I thought it was so cool, assuming it's legit.
Yeah.
I know there were a lot of questions about that. And actually, I think the recording since then has been taken down.
Yes.
I don't think it's on YouTube.
No, I mentioned that. Yeah, I told it was taken down very quickly. Very quickly.
But that apparently is what this guy does. He'll put a clip up, keep it up for a few days, whet your appetite,
right,
and then take it down. So apparently this is not the first time he's done that. Hey, look, if this is legit, this is the earliest known recording of Ed and Al.
Oh, sure.
And I guess Mark Stone, because he was the bass player.
Totally.
If it is them, it's certainly an interesting listen.
Oh,
because
for
Gabe
sure.
wasn't even in the band.
No,
I think Ed was singing,
this is what Wolf named his band after, was this trio. That's what he referenced. So maybe Wolf can legitimize it somehow. I don't know, but
maybe. But again, like we always say, stop teasing us with this stuff.
I know.
Just put it out.
I know.
What are you waiting for?
Well,
the tapes to disintegrate? Come on now.
But let's be honest, okay? I mean, let's wave a magic wand and say Eddie's alive and fine. If he lived another 40 years, I don't know if Ed would ever even put any of this stuff out. He doesn't have that Jimmy Page curated kind of mentality. Like, Page covets every little recording that Zeppelin did, and he really goes out of his way to preserve it. And Ed had no interest in doing that. So I get that, but I'm just talking about people who know that they're sitting on old tapes and just not. Oh, okay, right. Good point.
Putting it out there on bootleg.
Right. Just, the bottom line, like I said, and I've said in past podcasts, it's going to be up to us to keep Van Halen's legacy going. I don't mean us meaning you and me. I mean us as the fans. Those who have stuff, put it the fuck out, because what are we waiting for? I mean, we're all in our 50s and 60s. Some of us are in our 40s. I know we have some younger listeners, but, it's good for them to even know the history of it. But let's be honest. If we're going to enjoy it, let's enjoy it now. Or else it's all just going to go to pot. I mean, it's just all going to go to pot. So anyway, speaking of restoring the legacy of Ed, there's a new book coming out, Dave, called Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. And it's by Brad Tolinski and Chris Gill. It's a hardcover book. It's $28. It's on sale October 5th, 2021. You might be able to get a pre-sale, I believe, on Amazon. However, what this is the best interviews of Eddie Van Halen culled from 50 hours of conversations with Guitar World magazine, telling his own story in his own words. It says a new look at a musical legend via this groundbreaking oral history composed of more than 50 hours of unreleased interviews that they recorded